Good evening, friends. Welcome to the Global Focus by Hari Prakash Sinha, your trusted platform for decoding global challenges and opportunities. Today, we tackle a critical question: what ails India-US relationship in an era where partnerships shape geopolitics and geoeconomics? This relationship holds immense promise, but faces persistent hurdles. We are honored to have Dr. Adityanjee, the President of the Council for Strategic Affairs, joining us. His insight will unravel the complexities of these bilateral relationships and shed light on its future trajectory. So let's dive in. Welcome, Dr. Adityanjee. Welcome to our platform once again.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sinha, for inviting me again on Global Focus on this important issue.
Yes.
Very nice to be here.
Yeah. Sir, the India-US relationship is an interesting example of perpetual caution, hope, and disappointment. So, what do you think? What are the reasons behind such a relationship? Throw some light on this.
Well, reasons are fairly obvious. Since end of World War II, United States has been the superpower, and it wants to dictate the terms to each and every country in the world. Since India got independence in 1947, India charted a different course. And in the global geopolitics, somehow United States, instead of choosing to work with a democracy in Asia, started to work with a dictatorship, military dictatorship, that is Pakistan, and started to harm it. And those arms were used against India historically in whatever number of wars Pakistan had with India. So this caused a rupture of relationships, leading to India to lean on erstwhile Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And because of US State Department's penchant for, either you are with us or without us, because of that tendency, they decided to label India as a Cold War enemy, an ally of Soviet Union. So the relations were strained from pretty much from 1947 onwards, and they reached their nadir, very low point in 1971 when United States sent the Seventh Fleet in the Bay of Bengal to threaten India. Luckily, India had a treaty of mutual friendship with Soviet Union at that point in time, and there was surfacing of Soviet nuclear submarines in Bay of Bengal, forcing the Seventh Fleet to move away. But at that time, the US administration took very much anti-India viewpoint and opposed India in liberation of Bangladesh at that point in time, and sort of, had wink-wink, nod-nod situation with Pakistani military dictatorship. So those were the reasons, but gradually after that, from the time of Ronald Reagan, there was some improvement in relationships in bits and starts. However, the mentality did not change till the breakdown of Soviet Union, dissolution of Soviet Union, and the raison d'etre for US hostility towards India disappeared because Soviet Union was no longer there. Since year 2000, there has been a gradual improvement in India-US relationship, irrespective of the fact whether it is a Democrat Party-led administration or Republican Party-led administration in US, and whether it is NDA or UPA governing in India. So there has been a gradual improvement. Does not mean that there are no roadblocks or obstacles, but with fits and starts, overall, the tone of the relationship has improved. India has started to diversify armed acquisition from various sources rather than just from Russian Federation. There was a time when 90% of India's arms and equipment were coming from initially from Soviet Union and then from Russia. Now there's a diversification. So India is now, besides purchasing arms from Russia, is also purchasing from France, from US, and from Israel. And more than $20 billion worth of arms have been purchased from United States. Having said that, there are still issues that crop up from time to time. And I'm sorry to say that most of these issues come up when there is a Democrat Party-led administration in United States. The relationship was very good during the times of George W. Bush. Prior to that, there was Clinton administration, and there were issues. Clinton administration had heavily sanctioned India after the Pokhran 2 nuclear tests in 1998. Multiple layers of sanctions were placed, which were, of course, later on gradually relaxed. Under George W. Bush, India and US signed a civil nuclear deal finally around 2008, 2009. The deal was originally signed between Prime Minister and the President in 2005. However, during Barack Hussein Obama's presidency of 8 years, towards the end, the relationship took a nosedive because Indian diplomats were treated very badly. The current minister, Hardeep Singh Puri, he was India's permanent representative in United Nations, and on several occasions while traveling domestically in the United States by air, he was asked to remove his turban. Similarly, Indian ambassador to United States, Ambassador Meera Shankar, when she was invited to give a talk in a university in state of Mississippi, on the airport, she was manually frisked and patted down, which was an insult to a diplomat who gets a diplomatic immunity. Similarly, there was another Indian diplomat who was posted in United Nations, Devyani Khobragade. She was arrested and subjected to body cavity searches. So there have been instances during Democrat-led US administrations when anti-India postures have taken place. And we are seeing the same right now under Biden administration, that they are taking steps that are essentially hostile to India, whether it is engineering a coup in Bangladesh, whether it is giving a sustenance package of $460 million to Pakistan for the upgrading of their F-16s, ostensibly for anti-terrorism or counter-terrorism activity in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but everybody knows that F-16s that are nuclear capable are going to be used against India, not domestically in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So those have been issues. Plus, United States has also taken very benign attitude of American and Sikh Canadian terrorists operating from the soil of US and from the soil of Canada, and tried to, accuse India of supporting, illegal activities, which is not true. And of course, they keep on putting, sort of economic bombshells on Indian-owned companies. And I'm not going to name names, but I think again the idea is to prevent emergence of Indian business tycoons as major players in geoeconomics.
Yeah.
So we see that the actions of United States administration under Democrat administrations that are still under the Cold War mentality take anti-India attitude. On the same time, India is a member of Quad. India became a member of I2U2, IMAC, all these American-led Indo-Pacific economic framework, all those under Biden administration. But while playing a lip service They also try to do anti-India activities to show India its place. I would also cite a couple of other examples. During the COVID crisis, the second wave, India badly needed some raw ingredients for the vaccine manufactured domestically in India. The United States invoked Defense Production Act and refused to provide supplies. And that led to countless deaths of Indian citizens who were not able to get the vaccine in a timely fashion. Similarly, United States did freedom of naval operations on India's west coast near Kochi, in India's exclusive economic zone. And not only they did that, they also announced it by a megaphone that we did that and we don't care what India says. So issues like, I mean, either you are friends or you are not friends. If you're friends, you need to use some sensible diplomacy rather than try to slap the country you are trying to, you know, engage,
Yeah.
and hopefully you are hoping that you will be able to counterbalance China using India. That's not going to happen this way. You can't use India as a pawn just like you use Afghanistan or Syria or something like that.
Thank you, sir. I am moving to my next question. Why both countries must work together to address both bilateral and global issues?
Look, I won't say must, I would say should. Both are democracies,
Yeah,
both have, a common law,
yeah,
both are diverse, plural, both are supposedly secular, because although US is supposedly a secular country, but it is quote unquote built on Judeo-Christian tradition. So US lawmakers, the members of their parliament or senators or members of the House of Representatives get very worked up when Christian missionary propaganda is set up. They will do anything to sort of enhance the Christian missionary activity, conversions by fraud and deception in India. So, although both are democracies, supposedly secular, in reality it is not so. United States actually government acts as an agent of Christian missionary activities worldwide. That is a fact. But we have some common goals. We have common goals of spreading democracy, spreading rule of law, spreading human rights, a liberal, tolerant vision for rest of the world, free and fair trade. We abhor, dictatorships like Xi Jinping's in communist China, expansionist activities of China. So there are some common grounds. Having said that, the geographies are different. Americans have what is called doctrine of American exceptionalism. So they say that they are not bounded by any law, any international agency that they create. In fact, they are out of a number of international agencies. They have a penchant for unilateral financial sanctions, and India does not agree. So they invoked unilateral sanctions on Russia. Part of that unilateral sanctions was a United States law called CATSA. So India was subject to CATSA, but luckily the president did not invoke it. But the sword of Damocles was hanging when India decided to purchase as 400 ballistic missile batteries, shield batteries from Russia. Now, interesting thing is that India signed that agreement much before CATSA even came into being. The initial discussions were taking place in 2015, etc. And I think by 2016 and 17, the deal was signed with Russia, whereas CATSA came much later on. So, you can't invoke your domestic law, which was created by you, against a third country like India, which has an independent foreign policy. So India can buy arms from anywhere they wish to. Why should United States object and put sanction? So acts like this, these are senseless acts. But then they invoke the doctrine of American exceptionalism, and I have written an article on doctrine of Indian exceptionalism. Since 1947, India has adopted a very unique foreign policy, which is in line with India's strategic independence and autonomy, initially under non-alignment during the Cold War years, and now with emerging multipolarity of the world, India has issue-based alignment with various countries. So you have a situation of multi-alignment, and basically seeing what is right for India, what is not right for India. If something is right for India, India will work with that particular country. And United States does not like that. United States would like India to be quote unquote a vassal state, just like the NATO allies. India is not treaty bound. India is a partner, strategic partner of US, but India is not a treaty bound ally, and India will never sign any, treaties, military treaties or alliances with any country. So we see the same kind of tension in Quad, where United States wants to take over and build it into an anti-China military alliance that India does not want to do. Interestingly, although US had placed sanctions on India since 1974, first nuclear test, the peaceful nuclear explosion, in late 60s, India had approached United States for providing actually a nuclear protection umbrella, and United States had refused. That was the act that forced India to not sign NPT. You know, Either you say that you work for our interests or you say you don't work for our interests. So they should work together, but they don't because their geographical priorities are different, their geostrategic priorities are different. So India will slowly emerge and is slowly emerging as a regional power, as an economic powerhouse, now fourth, now actually fifth in terms of GDP in dollar terms, having displaced UK. India is approaching to displace Japan to become the fourth largest, GDP nation, and possibly Germany also by 2028. So after United States, China, India would be the third largest economic powerhouse in terms of dollar GDP. In terms of purchasing power, India is already third. So there's no reason why we should not work together. We should work together for common aims. We should harmonize our interests. There will not be 100% alignment on every issue. We need to be mutually respectful and tolerant for each other's point of view rather than throwing what I call hysterical fits. Unfortunately, the US government's organs keep on throwing hysterical fits. And the commonest thing that is used to quote unquote bring India in line is the human rights, weaponization of human rights. There are agencies of US administration that keep on bringing reports like USERF, United States Commission for International Religious Freedom, and another entity called United States International Ambassador for Religious Freedom at large. They keep on, sort of, finger point at India about human rights issues. Any minor incident that will happen that will be, blown out of proportion or distorted information is sought from motivated domestic critics of the government from India. So those are the challenges. And I think the ball lies in US court. Shape your behavior, change your behavior, and work with India. India will work with you, but India is not going to sign on the dotted line.
So what ails the India-US relationship? What more can you say?
I have already told you what ails. It's the attitude of United States administrations. If you think that you are a superpower and you'll be able to dictate to India, that's not going to happen. India has its strategic autonomy and independence, and irrespective of whoever is in the government of India will try to safeguard India's own interests. With United States, it doesn't work like that. They want your total allegiance. That's not going to happen.
Then how should India-US should navigate the future, this global landscape?
Look, there is a saying, there's a proverb, that you cannot clap with one hand.
Yeah.
You need two hands to clap.
Mm.
For a handshake, you need two hands of opposing parties. You
Yeah.
don't handshake your one hand with your other hand.
Yeah.
That's not a handshake. That is clasping your hands.
Mm.
Okay. So if they have these two countries have to work together, they have to have a proper handshake. And
Okay.
unfortunately, the domestic policies of United States are such that a harmonious relationship with India has become a challenge. And even in the last days of Biden administration, there are problems. Biden administration is refusing to acknowledge human rights violations in Bangladesh by military installed Islamic non-democratic interim administration of Muhammad Yunus. They are totally blind to what is happening to Hindu minority in Bangladesh. Now, this is an issue of concern not only for India, but also for India's population, the masses, the common man,
Yeah.
who is very perturbed because they identify with Hindus in Bangladesh because of common cultural issues.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, uh, the deposed, democratically elected Prime Minister of Bangladesh was forced to leave that country without even resigning. And she has come on record to say that there was some white man from United States who came and wanted to take over St. Martin's Island from Bangladesh in exchange for continuation of her government. I mean, she has gone on record. What more do you want? You know what is happening.
Mm.
So the onus for improving bilateral relationship lies on the US. And fortunately, there will be change in administration on January 20th. And maybe the new US administration, the second term of Donald Trump, may not be so hostile to India as Biden administration has been in the last 4 years.
Then what do
So
you
there's a hope for future. Will everything be hunky-dory? No. The United States has America first policy like it should have. And of course, India has India first policy, Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant. you know. So ultimately, you have to see on what particular issues you have commonality of interest.
Mm.
You harmonize those things and leave aside the issues on which you have divergences and don't make a big mountain out of molehill on those particular issues. There are no permanent friends or permanent enemies, they are permanent interests. So each country has its own permanent interests. India has her own, US has its own, and diplomacy requires how to do balancing act. Unfortunately, with US it is not so because they only know one language. That is, okay, we are going to hit you with a hammer. It doesn't work like that.
So moving to the next question, has the visa processing crisis eroded trust in India-US relationship?
See, the visa crisis has a historical legacy, and I think irrespective of whoever is in administration, there are problems. So during Trump's first term, from 2017 to 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020,
Yeah.
Trump had restricted the number of H-1B visas and increased the visa processing fee. So that led to a sharp cut down in the number of Indian techies being able to be employed by multinational companies in United States. In US, anytime there's a problem, they will, try to restrict immigration. There is a lot of xenophobia. This is likely to be repeated in second term of Trump that is going to start from January 20th, 2025. If they have a border crisis, illegal immigration coming from their southern border from Mexico, well, they need more resources. How do they generate resources? They increase the H-1B visa processing fee. What does H-1B have to do with illegal immigration? You need to fund your government in the right way and not actually rob Peter to pay Paul. That would be the strategy that, people who are coming legally for business purposes on professional visas, and they are bringing actually merit and technological skills to your country, boosting your economy, you are penalizing them in order to control your southern border. It doesn't make sense. But that has been done. So I'm not very hopeful because Trump has already announced that he will do massive deportations of illegal immigrants and criminal immigrants. He has said that he will prefer legal immigrants. Hopefully, he sticks to that word and does not restrict the quota of H-1B visas. During Biden administration, it was not just the H-1B visa, but even for ordinary tourist visa, the US was not processing in timely manner. There was a backlog. There was almost a year-long backlog for Indians to get actually a tourist visa to United States because they were not able to do in-person interviews and just, giving dates or 10 months, 11 months kind of thing when you send your visa application. And that's not the done thing. But there was a perception that it was used as a tool to punish India for its vocal, you
So
know.
Donald Trump has also announced the new tariffs that he is going to implement in the
Yeah.
new tenure. So do you think that will create some friction with India?
There may be some friction with India because Donald Trump in his first term had put India on list of currency manipulator nations. So just, it's not that change of administration from Democrat to Republican, everything will be hunky-dory. It's not likely to be so. And Donald Trump has this America First policy, and he has said that he will put sanctions or tariffs from any country
Mm.
that does not support dollar as the global reserve currency.
Okay.
Uh, you know, so if there's a BRICS currency that comes up, then the countries that are using BRICS currency, they will be tariffs. Now, I can tell you that there is no way BRICS currency is going to come, despite some of the talks from China and all that sort of thing. BRICS currency is not going. But
Okay.
having said that, there is need for a basket of currencies for international trade. You cannot just rely on US dollar.
Right.
And you see the example of unilateral sanctions on Russia that created problems in conducting trade between India and Russia. And Biden administration was very sore that India was quote unquote violating unilateral US sanctions of doing trade with India. India was purchasing oil from Russia. But India somehow managed that. Uh, so from India's perspective, yes, there is need to do cross-border trade with regional countries in local currencies, not relying on dollar because it becomes expensive. And that is happening gradually. So if that is not acceptable to Mr. Trump, he will put tariffs on India.
Okay.
And he's also concerned about trade deficit. Let me be very frank.
Oh.
At this point in time, US-India trade is around $120 billion per year, and that is in India's favor. Very few countries within India has positive trade balance rather than deficit. And that is not acceptable to Mr. Trump. So he will take some action. He has already said that he will put 25% tariff from products from Mexico and Canada
Mhm.
and 10% additional tariffs on products from China. In his first term, he had put tariffs on China. He was upset in first term with India, that India was not, allowing duty-free purchase of Harley-Davidson motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
He had actually openly mentioned that. So his approach is very transactional. He's a businessman. He wants to make a deal. So sometimes if the deal is not to his benefit, he will sulk and take countermeasures. So I cannot predict which way he'll go, but hopefully he has better equation with India's Prime Minister, Mr. Modi. They have said nice things about each other. They appeared jointly on civil platforms like Mr. Modi went to US in Houston when, he attended Howdy Modi rally organized by Indian American diaspora in which Trump participated. And similarly, in February of, I think, 2020, Trump came to Ahmedabad and then to New Delhi and participated in a civil rally called Namaste Trump. So they have a
Yeah, I have only 5 minutes of time left, and I have got two more questions for you.
go
One,
ahead.
one natural question I have: does this personal relationship have any effect on the serious issues when the two countries are discussing?
Look, it may have, it may not have. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody can look into the crystal ball. Nobody can read the tea leaves. Having said that,
Yeah.
having personal relationships between two heads of governments is sometimes very useful
Yeah.
because then you can bilaterally sort out the sort of, contentious issues, focus more on positives and leave the negatives aside without actually rankling anyone else. So Modi and Trump had good relationships, but during Trump's first term, although attempt was made to have a limited bilateral free trade area agreement signed between US and India, Mr. Trump refused because he wanted more concessions. He felt that India had a positive trade balance
Yes.
against US. So he's not going to sign on dotted line in India's favor.
Right. Right.
Yes, it's good to have personal chemistry with another head of state. That always helps
I see. I see. So
people
moving
and
to
explain
the
the
next
situation.
question, this is the last question. Is India's neutral stance on global issues a barrier to a stronger India-US ties?
Let me be very frank. India has strategic independence and strategic autonomy. And I did talk about doctrine of Indian exceptionalism.
Right.
India is not going to take an anti-US viewpoint in a reflexive knee-jerk manner.
I see.
Having said that, Indian policy has been to assess each issue on its own merit and see what is good for India, not what is good for United States, what is good for China, what is good for UK.
Right.
India has to make a determination of what is good for India, what is pro-Indian interest, and take a larger decision without sacrificing national interest.
I see.
If in that process somebody gets upset, so it be.
Thank you so much, sir. So with this, we are going to wrap up this session. That brings us to the end of the another thought-provoking episode of Global Focus by Hari Prakash Sinha. A big thank you to Dr. Adityanjee for his invaluable insights. India and the US stand at crossroads. Their collaboration or lack thereof will ripple through global geopolitics. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more such deep dives into global issues. Keep asking the right questions and stay informed. See you next time. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Adityanji. Thank you so much for your valuable time.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sinha, for having this enlightening discussion on India-US bilateral relationship. I'm very pleased to be here and I'm very pleased that I was able to give my point of view.